Okay, today we're going to be doing a service on a General Electric Vortalex model, I guess catalog number F11V163. This procedure is pretty much the same for all the old Vortalexes from this era. You can tell it's a Vortalex if it says Vortalex in the middle, no shit, and by the shape of the blade right here. Now, these are actually very simple to service fans compared to some fans, and they also are very reliable. Don't require much work ever. About the only thing that really I've ever seen failed on one of these is the head wire, just from bending back and forth. This one's a little bit frayed, but the internal wires are still okay. It's just the outer sheath that is damaged, so I don't bother replacing that unless it's actually posing a hazard because, well, one, I'm lazy, and two, I like keeping things as original as possible. So there's really only two steps in servicing one of these, and one of the steps, which we'll get to in a minute, is something that you're only going to have to do maybe once in your ownership of the fan, say 20 years or so. So the first step, and I'm sorry for this horrible video quality here, the first step is to oil the front bearing. This is the most important step, which should be repeated if you're using the fan on a daily basis, maybe every 3 months. If you're not using it on a daily basis, you can probably be fine doing it every 6 months. Now, unlike a lot of cheaper fans where you just drip some oil in the top here, this fan, you're going to notice metal piece right here. Some of these have a hole here and you can just put oil in here, but if it has this metal piece which you can unscrew, which most of these do, I would recommend taking it out. And you're going to find a little small wick in there. Let me zoom out here. So in this cup is a spring and a little felt piece, which you can see sort of absorbs the oil, and this puts it into the bearing automatically so you don't have to drip it. You can see it's quite dirty. What I would recommend doing is taking this and cleaning it. If it's in okay shape like this one is, it's just dirty, take this and clean it with some dish soap or something. Just get the old oil, if it's crusted up, off of it. In this case, it doesn't really need to be done. It is black, but it doesn't have like any hard old oil on it. If there's any old nasty oil in this, you can kind of just dump that out right onto the carpet like I just did. Now, just as important as oiling this fan is going to be the type of oil you use. At least that's the idea. Yes, I am devoted to high quality videos here. We point camera. Okay, so filming a monitor, at least a CRT monitor, is not the best experience in the world. So hopefully it's clearer, you can see better now. Here's the oil. There's two different kinds. You can either get this, it's called Zoom Spout. And, wow, these are some really crappy photos. Comes in a bottle like this. It says Zoom Spout, and it's got this nice long tube on it. This is normally not stocked at any stores, but you can order it. Or, the easiest thing to find, this is actually what I use. I just put it in a separate, or in a different bottle with a longer thing, is this 3-in-1 motor oil. See how it says motor oil? It comes in a blue can. This is good as well, and they stock it at most stores like Lowe's. I don't think they have it at Home Depot, but they might have it at Menards. I don't know, whatever stores are in your area, they might have this. One thing they will definitely have is this. However, you do not want to use this. Multi-purpose oil. Has a little picture of a home. You want the one that says motor, and it comes in a blue container, not the black container. Why is this a bad idea to use? supposedly because it has detergent in it, and it can loosen up dirt and debris within the bearing and cause it to wear out. In practice, I've used this plenty of times and never had a problem with it, but if I were servicing something that belonged to somebody else, I would not use this, just because it's not recommended by the people who actually know what they're talking about. As for the grease, it doesn't really matter what you use, as long as it's sort of thick. Just a number 2 grease. Lucas Red and Tacky is a good quality grease. It's a good bet if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. But really, wow, I cannot spell grease. Any number 2 grease. Of course, you don't need a 5-gallon pail of it. Always trying to sell stuff in bulk. Dielectric. You don't want dielectric grease. I'd just go with Lucas Red and Tacky, or something like this would be fine, really, any of that. I should also mention, since I mentioned it in the video, this is actually recorded after it, so I'm going to get to this part. The oil wick, damn, I can't type. The oil wick can be bought. At least you used to could buy it. Here you go. You can buy this oil wick. They have different sizes. They have 3/16, a 1/4 inch, an 1/8 inch. I don't know exactly what size it is. You would have to measure. Most likely either an 1/8 or 3/16. I don't think it's a 1/4. I don't think it's that thick. But anyway, you can order it in different sizes, and you can see what I was talking about maybe more clearly here, because my fan didn't have it. My oil wick was black. It is old, but it was still able to wick up the oil. But if it looks like this and it's really thick and like slathered in crud, if you can't clean it off, or if you'd rather just replace it, you can do that. And it comes in like this roll, so you can just cut it to size. I do go over this later in the video, but I figured I would show it on here while I was on the computer. They sell different sizes of oil wicks that you can buy. Of course, it's just the wick material like this. It comes in a roll like this. You don't get the oil cup or the spring. I don't think you get the spring. Does it come with a spring? It's only 1 foot. I don't think it comes with the spring, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So yeah, you can buy the oil wicks if you absolutely have to, although I find that most of the time if you use some dish soap or a degreaser of some nature and water and just work it around with your fingers and squish it around, you can normally get it to come back to life. It doesn't have to look white again. It doesn't matter if it's got the old oil black color to it, as long as it's sort of like in decent shape. I wouldn't replace it, but you have that option if yours is in bad condition. Once again, I go over this later in the video. So I think that's about all I need to show on the computer. I will go ahead and cut back over to the video now. Okay, so probably the easiest to find oil out of the ones that I think I just mentioned, if I remember, is the 3-in-1 motor oil. It comes in a blue can. You can pick it up at Lowe's or any sort of home improvement store. Now, me being the moron I am, I've lost the oil wick. This is great. Okay, so preferably, you wouldn't do like I just did and lose the oil wick, but I found it. And I should mention that if your oil wick is in like really bad condition and you can't clean it up with degreaser or dish soap or whatever it is that you try to clean it with, if it's not cleaning it, you can buy a new one. I will show that. You can buy a new one, and I would recommend just doing that. Now, what you need to do is you need to measure it. Now I'm not exactly sure which size this is, but they sell multiple sizes. It's just like a felt wick. It comes in a roll. And what you would do is you would take the oil wick out of this spring. You can sort of unwrap it from the end here. I know this is a low quality video, so it's kind of hard to see, but it's just wrapped around this spring. You can pull it out. And then you put your oil wick next to it, to the new one, and you would cut it. And I'd probably make it maybe a 1/16 of an inch larger, but most of the time you can clean these up and bring them back to life. Now, I don't have the original bottle. I put my oil in this thing, but the original bottle it comes in is just fine. This is just great for reaching into places where you would need to, but you wouldn't need to for here. I have the 3-in-1 motor oil. You're just going to want to put enough oil in here to fill it up maybe 3/4 of the way. You don't want to fill it up all the way. You can kind of see where I got it filled up to in there. And you're going to put your oil wick back in. And you don't have to do this, but I always like to put just a bit of oil around the wick just to help it, although it will wick it up in there. And after that, all you got to do is just screw this back up in there. It does have a slot on the bottom if it's too tight to get out by hand. I would not recommend screwing it back in with a screwdriver. Just finger tight is plenty. Now that completes the routine maintenance, as in after you service the fan the first time, because we're going to look at the grease in here. After you service the fan the first time, this is all you have to do. Like I said, 3 months if you're using it every day, maybe 6 months if you're not using it every day. You could probably get away with doing a year either way, honestly, because these things are very robust. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to raise the camera back up. And once again, I apologize for shaking it all over the place here. I wish whoever's texting me would stop it. I know they're not going to, because I know who it is. Okay. Now, I'm trying to get you as close as I can. Okay, I apologize about that. Somebody was rudely interrupting. Now, here's what we're going to do. This is something that you should only have to do once in the time that you own the fan. If you're, well, I say that, but every 20 years, maybe even more, because the grease they used to use was old, you know, I don't know what it was, but the grease we have now is synthetic, and honestly, it lasts a lot longer. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take off these 2 screws. There's 2 screws on the top. We're just going to take these off. We're going to pull this off. This just unscrews as well. This whole top's going to come off. Now, in this fan, you can see the grease is still nice and packed up to the top, and you can see that it's still nice and soft. I probably put this in here 2 or 3 years ago. It was originally red. It's gotten sort of not red anymore, but you can see it's still nice and soft. It still has the consistency of grease. So we're not going to worry about that. However, if it's something that's never been done or hasn't been done in a very long time, the grease in there is probably going to be really low to the bottom, and it's probably going to be all hardened. And if that's the case, you want to get a screwdriver or something and just scrape out as much of that as you can. Wipe it on a paper towel or something. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to get every single bit of it out, but you're going to want to get as much of it as you can out. And I use this. This is what I've currently got, at least. I just use the cheapest grease I can find at the time. As long as it's a number 2 grease, it's fine. But once again, I will go over, or I have gone over at this point in the video, the greases and oils that would be correct. You really don't need that much, but I think that's about the smallest volume of it you can buy. So you're going to want to fill that. It doesn't have to be filled to the top, but I like filling it to the top. And then I like putting this back on and turning the fan on and letting it oscillate for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, and then opening it back up, because a lot of that new grease, which hasn't been down in there in years, is going to get worked around inside of these gears and sort of sucked down in there, and then at that point you can top it off again and put the cover back on. But really, any grease is better than what was already in here, and these things are quite robust. Now, the rear bearing, unlike the front one, which we had to service, does not require service. The rear bearing, and I'm not a big fan of this solution, but it seems to hold up well, so I guess it's okay. And this is another reason why the grease needs to be in good condition. The rear bearing is lubricated, in theory, by the grease in the gearbox. So if your grease is hardened up, you're not going to get any grease to your rear bearing. And although there is a spot here where an oil port used to be on the older models, it's blocked off. So putting no oil in there would help. Now what you can do, and I would recommend doing when you're doing the grease, before you do it, take this, there's like a little felt thing inside of there, you can see it when there's not grease in there, squirt some oil around there, maybe 10 or 11 drops, it doesn't really matter, just get some in there, and then you can put your grease in, just because the bearing's probably been dry for years if this grease has not been in good shape, which it's most likely not. Once you're done with that, you can replace the cover, and that's all there is to it. This grease, like I mentioned, in this gearbox is something you only have to worry about once, and you're most likely going to be fine for 20 plus years, because this grease lasts a long time, and in this condition it's not exposed to heat or anything like that, high temperatures or anything, so it's not really going to get dirty or break down very quickly, so you don't have to worry about that often. It's just the procedure for removing, oiling, and if it's dirty, cleaning this oil wick. Although, once again, the oil we have today is a lot better than what we had then. It doesn't really gum up as much. So, once you clean that oil wick, if it's got a bunch of gummed up oil in it, once you clean that, it's no longer, it most likely won't require that again, as long as you keep putting clean oil in there every few months, 6 months to a year if you're not using it. So it'll most likely be fine. It's not like a car engine where you have to change it every so many miles or your engine will blow up. The worst thing that's going to happen here is the bearings are going to wear a little bit quicker if you don't lubricate it properly. But it's the first servicing when you first get the fan that's most important, because it most likely hasn't been done in who knows how long, if ever. After that, it should be good to go. And it should spin very freely when you turn it off after it's been, this thing's out of clock a little bit. Is high speed all the way? Oh, it is. Okay, high speed's all the way this way. After it's been serviced, these things run so well. When you turn the fan off, it's off now, it should spin for a good long time and be very free. If it's slowing down too quickly, your bearings are most likely either worn out, or more than likely you've got a bunch of stiff old oil inside of your bearings. So after you service it, it should clear up after running it for a good while. Now, this is just a very basic servicing. If you really wanted to, you could get into it, take the whole motor apart and clean it out, and that would be the proper way of doing things, but I don't find that that is necessary, especially on these older fans, which are quite robust. So there you go. I hope this video was helpful to at least the one person who this video is oriented towards, maybe someone else. If anyone has any questions, comments, points of disagreement, or anything else, please be sure to let me know in the comments section below, or beside if you're on a TV. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.